you are afraid to lead worship, you're nervous, you're fearful of what is going to happen, and maybe you step in front of your church every single Sunday and you feel those butterflies in your stomach. You get the nervous sweat. You are just so unconfident when you lead worship. Or maybe somebody has offered you the opportunity to lead worship at your church and you're like, I could never do that because I am so afraid of being in front of people. Well, this video is for you. It is for you who keeps telling yourself, I could never do that because I am too nervous. I'm too afraid to lead worship. I want to show you why leading worship is not scary. You don't have to be nervous. Let's talk about it. And we have to start here because this is what changed my mindset about leading worship and has allowed me to lead confidently every single Sunday. Our nervousness, our fear comes from a misunderstanding of what our job is as a worship leader. And so if we want to overcome the fear that we have of leading worship, we need to understand this. We need to understand what our job actually is, and our job is simply this: point people to the worthiness of God and provide them with the opportunity to respond. We point people to the worthiness of God and provide them with the opportunity to respond. What do you not hear in that job description? Our job is not to have a really good singing voice. Our job is not to make sure that we always play the right note on our guitar. Our job is not to make sure that we always speak with eloquence, painting these beautiful word pictures, speaking with eloquence. In fact, I'm pretty sure there's a Bible verse where Paul says, I don't speak with eloquence. So if it's good enough for Paul, it's good enough for us. Now, this isn't a call to not being excellent in what we do. I'm not giving you permission to suck at music. I'm giving you permission to stop worrying about sounding as good as you possibly can all the time and comparing yourself to those other worship leaders who are really good at guitar and who have a really good singing voice. You know, I don't have a really good singing voice. I've been able to lead worship for the past 17 years just fine. And I've grown in that over the time in my singing ability. I remember when I first started, I was horrible, but guess what? I was still able to lead worship because leading worship is not primarily about music. It is about leading people. We don't just lead songs, we lead people. So can you lead people? We have to get this understanding right, because if we don't get this understanding right, and I think that this is where the fear comes for you, for most people at least, is that we are afraid that we are going to mess up. We are afraid that we're going to play the wrong notes, sing the wrong words, sound horrible whenever we sing. And so if your job is to sound really good, if your job is to put on a performance, if your job is to act like you are some musician at a concert, then 100% you should be nervous. If I was going out to play a show somewhere, I might be nervous and I would be wondering, what do these people think about me? What are they going to think about me when I play, when I start to sing? Are they going to like my voice? Are they going to enjoy my guitar playing? And I would be nervous because I would be like, I really hope these people like me. But let me assure you that it is 100% not like that when you lead worship. You are not putting on a concert. People should not be focusing on how you sound and, man, that person sounds really bad today. I mean, we want to sound good, right? But even if you're like at 80% instead of 100% in a concert environment, that a person in the quote unquote audience would be like, yeah, they were fine. Like, they sounded good. I mean, it wasn't horrible, but it wasn't that great. People in your church shouldn't be having those thoughts. So it's not on you to sound as good as you possibly can, because that's not your job. Your job is to point people to the worthiness of God and provide them with the opportunity to respond. And because, this is key, because you have the Spirit of God inside of you, you can do that. We'll talk about that a little bit more at the end of this video, but you can do that. You can point people to the worthiness of God and provide them with the opportunity to respond. That's how you lead worship. So quit being nervous because you think that you're not going to sound good. That's not our goal as a worship leader. Our job, I keep saying it because it's important, our job is to point people to the worthiness of God and provide them with the opportunity to respond. And everything that we do, we point them to the worthiness of God and provide them with the opportunity to respond. Just a quick note here, if you feel like you aren't the best singer in the world and you feel like you need a little bit more encouragement in that avenue, that line of thought, I'll link a video that'll be helpful down in the description below about that. So that's the mindset that we need to understand as we step into worship leading, and that in and of itself has freed me from nervousness, from being fearful, because it's not about me. It's about the people of God, and it's about God, and it's not about how I sound. Let's talk about some practical ways now, though, that you can overcome this fear, because I understand it might still be there, but there are some things that you can do to push past that nervousness. And the first thing is this: we have to put in the proper preparation. We have to prepare to lead worship, and a lot of worship leaders are nervous and scared, fearful, because they are unprepared. If I didn't run through my worship songs before Sunday morning, I would be nervous and fearful too, because I would be like, I don't know these songs, so I'm not going to be able to play them well. Now, I will say this: the longer you do this, the easier preparation becomes, and the less time you have to spend preparing. Like, it might take me an hour or maybe even just 30 minutes, depending on how many songs we're doing on Sunday. It might take me an hour or 30 minutes to prepare musically to lead worship on Sunday. And so my preparation time is less, but I'm still putting in the proper preparation. For you, if you're just starting, it might take you 3 hours to learn those songs and make sure that you know them well enough to lead them in front of your church. But like I said, that is not the sole focus of our time of gathering. So even though it only takes me an hour or half an hour to get the musical side of things down, to feel comfortable leading musical worship, remember, if you are like the lead worship leader, like the person who is actually leading the moments in your service, you aren't just leading songs, you are leading the people of your church. So on top of that time spent with musical preparation, remember, that's not your job on Sunday. It is your job, but it's not the primary focus of your job. So you are missing out on so much when you don't prepare to lead your people on Sunday. We are not fulfilling our responsibilities when we only prepare music for Sunday. We actually fulfill our responsibilities when we prepare to lead people on Sunday. So I've got a ton of training about that. If you need help out with that, you check out some links in the description below. I'll link one that's probably beneficial to you about speaking between worship songs. I've got a whole playlist on that where I will teach you how to speak confidently between worship songs and know what to say every single time. So I'll link that down in the description below. That'll be helpful for you. But remember, we aren't just leading songs, we're leading people. If you were just leading songs, you could be nervous about that because you can play songs incorrectly. But you know how to speak to people. So just prepare. What are you going to say between songs? Put in the proper preparation. The more preparation you put in, the more confident you will feel in your worship leading. And I want to encourage you with this, is that, listen, at the end of the day, we were all nervous when we first started leading worship. I understand that those things that I just talked about, they aren't like a magic bullet, and now maybe it helped with your nervousness, but I understand that you're still going to be nervous because this is a new thing for you in leading worship. And so I just want to encourage you that this takes time. I wasn't confident in my worship leading probably for the first 5 years of leading worship. And then something around year 5 finally clicked. And I was like, hey, I've been doing this for 5 years now. I know how to do this. But you're only going to get to that point of confidence by putting in the reps and leading every single Sunday. What are there? There's probably, I take 1 or 2 weeks off a year. So let's say there's 50 Sundays in a year. And so I probably led worship for 250 times just on Sunday mornings, not counting gatherings outside of Sunday mornings. I probably led worship 250 times before I was confident. How many times have you led worship? Think about it. Are you at 250 yet? Then you're probably not fully confident yet. So just keep putting in the reps. The more you do it, the more you'll get the process down. You'll be able to step on stage with confidence because you're like, I've done this 250 times before. So just give it time. That's true with anything in life. We're never confident with it the first time we do it, but the more we do it, the more confident we get. And then I just want to remind you of this. This is ultimately why you don't have to be nervous when you lead worship, because you do not lead by your own strength. You lead because the Spirit of God is in you. If you are a follower of Jesus, you have the Holy Spirit inside you, equipping you, using you for the glory of God, so you do not lead by your own power. And so maybe you need to pray that prayer if you're nervous before you lead worship, and you need to remind yourself of that and pray, God, in these moments, I do not want to lead by my own power, because I confess that I am not able to do this on my own. It is only through the power of your Holy Spirit that I am able to point people to your worthiness and provide them the opportunity to respond. So God, would you allow your Spirit to strengthen me and to work through me as I lead your people this morning? Maybe you need to pray that prayer and actually trust it. Remind yourself of that before you lead worship, that we do not lead in our own strength. You do not lead in your own strength. I've been leading worship for 18 years, 17 years. I always give a different number there. I've been leading worship for 17 years, and I still do not lead in my own spirit. Chris Tomlin has been leading worship for however long he's been leading worship for. He does not lead through his own strength. Phil Wickham has been leading worship for how many years? He does not lead in his own strength. All right, these people are just like you. They've just been doing it for longer, but we all have the same Holy Spirit inside of us. The same power that raised Jesus from the dead lives in you. The same power that lives in Chris Tomlin lives in you. The same power that lives in Phil Wickham lives in you. The same power that lives in the Hillsong worship leaders lives in you. The same power that lives in the leaders of Maverick City Music lives in you. The same power that lives in the Elevation worship leaders lives in you. It is the same Spirit. The only thing that's different is that these people have put in more time than you, but that does not make their worship leading better than you, because the Holy Spirit, Christ, perfects our worship, intercedes for us when we are not perfect in our worship, and we can rest in that. We do not lead by our own power. We lead through the power of the Holy Spirit. So quit being nervous when you lead worship. Everything is going to be fine. Remember your mission to point people to the worthiness of God and provide them with the opportunity to respond. If you want a little bit more confidence this Sunday, I want to help you out. There's a link down in the description below to free audio training I put together called 5 Tips to Instantly Improve Your Worship Leading. These are made for people like you, like people who are just getting into worship leading or who need a little bit more training in their worship leading. These are 5 super simple things that you can do this Sunday. They will help you lead worship more confidently and help you lead an engaging time of worship where you actually engage your church in worship and you aren't just singing some songs. So check out 5 tips to instantly improve your worship leading down below in the description. Other than that, thanks so much for joining me. Till I see you in the next video, keep leading worship well.